confidentiality. It means that whatever participant, whosoever your participant is, you are not supposed to disclose the identity of the participant. Suppose if I am someone's participant, I will not disclose my name, age, gender. No. Just ABC, so that the confidentiality is maintained. Can you please pay attention? So, most important point about practical is never disclose the details or the identity of your participant. Second thing, when you do the report writing, never keep the response sheet in open. Always put it in an envelope. Why? Simple reason is, why should anyone know the responses of your participant if we have to adhere to the confidentiality? Yes.
So we can refrain influencing our with the responses that they receive.
Yes. Never ever disclose the data of your participant, the responses of your participant. Always keep the response sheet in the envelope. Next, it depends upon you whether you are a left-handed person or a right-handed person. Accordingly, the participant has to be seated. If I am a left-handed person, my participant will sit towards my right and a bit perpendicular. But if I am a right-handed person, my participant will sit towards my left and little bit perpendicular. Why? First of all, a screen has to be kept, so that once again there is confidentiality, and if I am using my left hand to write, my hand should not be an obstacle to see or to observe what the participant is doing. Right? Never ever make the participant sit in the same alignment with your hand with which you write. You have to also keep a screen. Screen, it's a wooden plank, flat wooden plank, which we use to keep some confidentiality or privacy for the participant. You have to observe what the participant does, but don't keep gazing at the participant. Let there be some privacy as well. Next comes the format of report writing. Is everyone understanding what I am conveying? Ethics, confidentiality, privacy, screen, your left or right-handedness. Is all this clear till now? Then comes the report writing. Just like those who had science, PCB, they used to do experiments. They used to make some practical file. Same way it will happen in psychology. In psychology also, we are supposed to make reports on the basis of whatever data we get. But there is a format to make a report. You can't just write whatever you wish to. There is a format. So we begin with the aim. If you wish to, you can note down these points. In a report, we begin with the aim. Or the objective. Aim or objective is the same. Then we write the basic concept. Basic concept comes from the theory. Because on some theoretical basis, we are conducting a practical. So basic concept covers the theory part. Then comes the hypothesis. Now, what is a hypothesis? hypothesis? Can anyone tell me? Sorry? Okay. Anyone else? Those who are coming late, please fill the attendance. Circulate the attendance sheet to them. Where is the attendance sheet? Please circulate the attendance sheet to them. Okay, can anyone tell me what is hypothesis? Exactly. So, hypothesis, but you said solution. It's not a solution, it is a statement. So, hypothesis is a statement that a researcher or an experimenter makes to prove. Now, in case a hypothesis is proved to be true or it is accepted, well and good. But in case the hypothesis is rejected or proved to be false, it does not mean your research has gone in vain. Okay. So, in report writing, we also mention the hypothesis. Hypothesis is a tentative statement which we do before we collect the data in the process of research or even in the report writing. Now, it is not necessary that a hypothesis which is proved to be false or is rejected, that your experiment or your data collection process or your research process should go in vain or should be useless. No. Even if the hypothesis is false. If it is proved to be true, well and good. So, in the report writing, we write the aim, the basic concept, the hypothesis, we write the variables. Now, we know that there are two types of variables, majorly two types, independent and dependent. Dependent variables are those which get influenced by the independent variables. For example, I talk about temperature and a mood. Now, the temperature is an independent variable in a laboratory setup. We may increase or decrease the temperature. In a laboratory setup, if there are air conditioners, we can increase or decrease the temperature with the remote. But your behavior or your mood will depend upon the temperature. If it is very hot, certainly you will feel uncomfortable, agitated, you will not be in a pleasant mood. But if the temperature of the laboratory setup is conducive, it's comfortable to sit in, you will not show moodiness, you will not show irritability or aggression. So, a dependent variable is that variable which gets influenced by the independent variable. But in the case of independent variable, it is up to the researcher or the experimenter which all variables have to be independent. Now, it is up to the experimenter how much the temperature should be. It should be very cold or very hot. The remote is with the experimenter, he or she can control it. So, independent variables can be manipulated, they can be changed. But dependent variables, they are directly influenced or affected by the independent variables. After writing the variables, we write the personal particulars of the participant, such as age, gender or name. Name we do not disclose, we write A, B, C or X, Y, Z. So, these are two, three personal particulars that we write, name, age and gender, but do not write the actual name, write a fictitious name. Once we write the name, age and gender, we write the materials required. Now, any psychological test or an experiment, we can't just sit anywhere and do. We need some material such as screen, stationery, psychological tools. In psychological tools, we require response sheets, test booklets, manuals, or any other apparatus. But we do require some material. We can't do any experiment empty-handed. We have to be prepared. So, in that case, we require materials which we mention in the report. So, I am giving some examples like stopwatch. In case we have to adhere to some time limit, stopwatch is one of them. Screen, wooden screen, apparatus or response sheets. These are some of the materials required, and materials can change according to the experiment or the test. For example, stopwatch. Stopwatch is not required in every test or experiment. Only if there is some time limit, then only we require a stopwatch so that we can adhere to the time limit. Suppose if a test is of 4 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, then we require a stopwatch to adhere to the time limit. So, every material changes according to the requirement of the test or the experiment. Then comes the administration part. In administration, we have to write how the test is conducted. So, for example, we have to write rapport formation, that how a rapport was formed or established. We can't just pull anyone's hand and say, okay, sit here and we want to conduct a test on you. No. No, it's not yes, it's no. We cannot just randomly pull someone's hand and say, okay, sit here, we want to conduct a test on you. That person can get scared. Why a test? What is the need of the test? I'm okay. So, one more thing, be very careful. It is as psychology students, you know that you are conducting a psychological test. But a layman or a non-psychology student does not know about a test. As such, if we talk about tests, we get scared, be it a class test or a blood test or any test. There is some fear that why a test? What is it for? So, never use the word test. You can say we would like to know something about you, we would like to give you a set of questions, but never use the word test or experiment. That is up to you how you convey, but never use these two words. You have to be honest to the participant, but without using any scientific terms or jargons or anything which can scare or confuse them.
Not even tactical.
No. So, in the administration process, we have to establish a rapport, make the participant feel comfortable so that the participant can cooperate with you. If the participant will not feel comfortable, how will you work with the participant? There has to be a comfortable relationship between you and the participant. You can't make the participant feel scared or uncomfortable, so that there is originality in their behavior, in their responses, once there is a comfort level. After rapport formation comes the instructions. Now, instructions, they keep varying as per the psychological test or the experiment. So, there is not one set of instructions which are applicable to any or every experiment or a test. They keep varying as per the requirement. Those who are entering now, kindly fill the attendance sheet. Otherwise, you will be marked absent. So till now in administration we have done rapport formation, instructions, then we have to take care of the precautions. Now every experiment or a test needs some level of precautions, such as there should be a conducive environment, there should not be any disturbance. If a participant is required to show lot of concentration or focus and has to work very efficiently if it is a speed test, there should be minimum distraction. The artifacts in an experiment or a test are the disturbances. They are the disturbances which hamper with the quality of the performance of participant or which hamper with the process of this entire practical. So, as psychology students or experimenters, it is your responsibility that there should be minimum artifacts. You have to ensure that environment for the participant or the subject is conducive. This is one of the precautions. You have to ensure that the participant always gives his or her details before they leave. You have to ensure that the participant writes the introspective report. I will be explaining you what is introspective report, but I am just telling you one of the precautions first. You have to note down that the participant does not leave any question unattended. We will be doing practicals in the 3 papers in which you will have to see that there is a response sheet. Now, in response sheet, there are various questions, but in the language of psychology, we don't call them questions, we call them item numbers. Like question 1 is not called question number 1, it is called item number 1. They could be close-ended questions for which answers could be yes or no. So, those are called item numbers, and you have to ensure as psychology students, as one of the precautions, that no question is left unattended, or else it will affect the quality. Once the participant has gone, they cannot return. So, as experimenters or psychology students, it is your responsibility to ensure that all the questions or item numbers are attended. That is also one of the precautions. You have to note down that all the possible artifacts are kept away, all the materials which are required for conducting the experiment or the psychological test are present. It's not that, okay, wooden screen is not there, so manage with a notebook. कि notebook खड़ा कर दो, wooden screen का काम करेगा, done and dusted. No. You have to ensure that all the apparatus or the material required are available before you execute. In case it's a test which has time limits, please ensure that the stopwatch works well and you adhere to the time limits. It's not that participant is your friend and you give the liberty to the participant that okay, it doesn't matter, 1 or 2 minutes extra is not a problem from my side. No. That time you are not their friend. You have to adhere to the rules. Then comes the scoring. But before scoring comes introspective report. Now what is introspective report? You have to ask the participant to convey in verbatim or to write. That is between you and the participant, your call. Either you write on behalf of the participant quote unquote what the experiment was, what the experience was about the entire process, or you tell the participant to write directly how the experience was about this experiment or the psychological test.
Kind of a feedback.
Not just a feedback, you are asking them how they felt. Feedback could be even a close-ended one, like a questionnaire. You are drafting some questionnaire and you are asking like a rating scale or a feedback, okay, please tell us your experience. No. You are making them feel, you are making them introspect or understand about how they felt while this entire procedure was going on. It's not analysis, it's called introspective report. Analysis is when you see what the result was. We'll come to that, analysis or interpretation. That's a different thing. So suppose if you ask the participant, please write about your experience or convey your experience, they will say that, they might say that I felt very comfortable due to the experimenter. The experimenter conveyed the instructions very well. There was clarity. Everything was done very comfortably. This is just an example how they may convey. So this is not just a feedback. They will also write how they felt. Like, due to the experiment or the psychological test, I felt good to know about myself. These are just some examples I am quoting. Please don't just adhere to these sentences, because there are some queries coming that what is introspective report, so I am conveying. So before the participant leaves, an introspective report has to be collected on a piece of paper, which later on you will be attaching in your report. And you as psychology students need to give the behavioral report or the behavioral note, that what did you observe in the participant. Because at times what happens is, participants may give some socially desirable type of introspective report. But when you are seeing the behavioral report as well, you can kind of correlate that, okay, as an experimenter or as psychology student, I observed this about the participant, such as the participant was having some queries which I clarified. The participant initially looked very cooperative and interested in the test, but I saw that participant was eventually feeling uncomfortable due to maybe tiredness or the length. Just some examples I am quoting. So as psychology students, you have to see what did you observe in the behavior of the participant. That is a behavioral note or behavioral report. Remember one thing, introspective report needs to be given by the participant, behavioral note needs to be given by the experimenter or the psychology student. After that, there will come data. Now what is data? Data is your response sheet. Whatever responses the participant has given is your data. After data comes the scoring. Now why scoring comes after the data? Because if there is no data available, how will you do the scoring? Now, different psychological tests or experiments have their own ways of doing the scoring. In some you will see standard scores, STEN scores, percentile ranks, or various other types of scores. That will somehow vary. All the raw scores or obtained scores are converted into standard scores. Why? So that the participants' responses can be compared, can be in a comparable state. That is why raw or obtained scores are converted into standard scores, because standard scores are obtained from a large pool of data in which your participant can be compared with other population of his age or gender and even the cultural norms. After data there is scoring. After scoring there is interpretation or analysis. Now, once you have the scores with you, you need to know what the scores are depicting. What will I do with numbers if I don't understand the meaning? You need to understand what the scores trying to depict. Whether they are low or high or average, all this is done using the toolkits of the test. So, if you see a psychological test, there are 2-3 things. There is a response sheet, there is a manual, there is a test booklet, there are stencils. All this you will get to see as you proceed with the practicals. In an experiment, there could be certain apparatus which I have already explained, such as wooden screen or other tools, such as in mirror drawing there could be a mirror made and you have to copy some pictures. So, every test or experiment have their respective apparatus, and you have to see in the interpretation that you are able to interpret or understand what the scores of your participant are depicting, be it high, average, low. And when we write the interpretation, we always begin with the objective or the aim of the test. We can't just write in any haphazard way. There is a format of writing interpretation. So, it begins, the introduction in the interpretation starts with the aim, then in the body comes what the scores are depicting, and finally we close the interpretation by saying that if the scores are low, what it is conveying, in case they are high, what is it conveying, and then comes the conclusion of the experiment or the test, that finally what have we understood after the test is conducted. But remember, there are certain tests which do not have any conclusion. For example, personality tests. Can we conclude with anyone's personality? No, personality is very subjective. The behavior keeps changing as per the situation. We sometimes keep conforming to the situations, but that does not mean we always show the same behavior. A person in the situation of an experiment or a psychological test is showing a different behavior than when he will or she will be with the friends or family or in a non-laboratory setup. So, in every test or experiment, we never give conclusions. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. That will depend upon the format. But I just gave an example, such as in personality, there is no conclusion. And after we finish with interpretation and sometimes conclusion and sometimes not, we write the references. References are a must. And references are mentioned in APA style, American Psychological Association. They have made a format of how to write a reference. References are mentioned in the APA style. So, that is about how we go for report writing. Are there any queries? Anyone? Yes?
These tests are specific set of questions which have been asked by experimenter or the psychologist today.
Yes, the tests are constructed.
With a specific set of questions.
there are specific sets of questions. And also remember one thing, we in the report also have to describe about the test, that what is the purpose of this test. In about the test we write the history of the test, we write the reliability and the validity of the test. Like in research methods you will be studying about types of reliability, types of validity. We also have to mention about that. Usually tests do have test retest reliability, split half reliability, they have validity like concurrent validity. So we have to mention about which types of reliability and validity are there in the test. Any other queries?
Behavior report given by us, right? So in the analysis of the introspective report or like just the observation?
See, the behavioral report and the introspective report are not a part of analysis. They are different. In the analysis or the interpretation, we write about what the scores are depicting, which is very different from introspective report or the behavioral note. Any other queries? And have I talked about review of literature? No. So when we are writing about the test, we also have to write about the literature review or review of literature. Now what is that? That is about the previous researches done in the domain of the topic of test we are doing. For example, if we are doing any test on personality, we have to see the review of literature of various other personality tests, that why this test has developed, how come this test has developed, what are the researches done before in the field of the test which we are right now doing. That is about the review of literature, which comes before the basic concept. Anything else? Any queries? So in the topic of learning, which is a part of your first semester, we had thought of doing mirror drawing. In mirror drawing, you know that opposite pictures are made. If we write F in capital letters, you will see that F is made in the opposite direction in the mirror drawing. So in mirror drawing, we are seeing that how long lasting that change in the behavior will remain. How we will be learning, for how long we will be learning to make mirror images. We are not habituated to write F in a mirror drawing shape. We are habituated to write F the way we have learned. So it's just one example. So mirror drawing is not everyday behavior. Our handwriting is not always in a shape of mirror drawing. But in this experiment we will see for how long that learning will be of mirror drawing. Just one example, we will be seeing which all practicals to do, but today we just gave you an introduction about how to draft a report. Any difficulties anyone had? Any queries? Yes? remember one thing. When we give instructions to the participant or the subject, we must keep an eye contact in between. We have to read, but also try to make frequent eye contact. Don't just keep going on reading these instructions, because when there is an eye contact, we are able to see by the expressions whether the participant is with us in understanding the instructions or not. Attentive, it's not just attentive. We have to also see whether they have understood the instructions or not. We have to be a little slow in reading the instructions so that the participant can remember what instructions were conveyed.
It's interactive.
It has to be interactive, but not like a conversation. Give instructions, but don't just keep reading very quickly just for the heck of it. As psychology students, we have to see whether participants have understood the instructions or not. Like I am speaking, I am not speaking very quickly. I am also ensuring that you all are with me in understanding the class, in understanding the practical. You can't say, okay, ma'am just came, read out everything and went. That's not the situation. Same is in case with the psychological testing or experiment. While reading these instructions, you have to make an eye contact, because that affects the psyche of the participant, that the participant does feel attended to. If I just read a notebook that, okay, chapter 1, brief history, Sternberg, I am not looking at anyone. But when I say chapter 1, brief history, I am seeing everyone. That is certainly affecting you people, that yes, anytime ma'am can look up and we can't afford to just keep scribbling and not paying attention. When she is looking at us, any question can bombard on us, or she can also ensure that we are paying attentive. So, when we are making eye contact while reading out the instructions, we can see the comfort level and the attentiveness of the participant. So, that also needs to be taken care of by you people as psychology students. And also try that introspective report should be taken on a different piece of paper, which comes as an evidence in your report that yes, it was genuinely the participant who wrote it and you didn't write on your own on anyone else's behalf. There has to be authenticity in the report writing. You can't just on anyone's behalf write quote unquote. Either in your report the participant should write, or you take the introspective report on a slip of paper and later on paste it, so that the authenticity is maintained. Any difficulties till now? And also, when we are doing tests, it is just to inform you, when we are doing any tests, in some tests there are translucent plastic type sheets which are placed on top of the response sheet. Your response sheet will be of this type of sheet, same length, same dimensions and same white paper. But some transparent sheets are superimposed. Superimposed means they are kept right on top of the response sheet, which are called as stencils. And with the help of stencils, your raw scores are obtained. Remember, always that stencils are used for getting your raw or obtained scores, not your STEN or standardized scores. Remember this. When you do your psychological testing in future, that some tests do have stencils. They are the transparent or translucent sheets which contain your obtained or raw scores. Has everyone signed the attendance sheet? I think there were 2-3 sheets distributed. Please fill all, everyone has to fill the attendance sheet. Those who have not, please fill and then return. Your pen doesn't work. Today is 15th. Yes. Only 2 attendance sheets were circulated. Please ensure that everyone has filled their details. It will help you in your marks for attendance. Anything that anyone has not understood from today's lecture, please ask. Any queries? Hey. That's why we get your attendance filled. It is course specific, ना? It's not come one, come all. Admission लिया है course में, तो attendance की भी value है. I think 5. If it's more than 75%. If it's less than 75%, then you will not get 5 out of 5. आपने भरा नहीं है? तो अटेंडेंस शीट ही तो है. But if you come, it's better. आपके marks लगते हैं attendance के. I think 5 for full attendance or for more than 75% attendance. हफ्ते में एक ही दिन तो आना है. sheet किसके पास था?